So thank you for waiting. Basically, we were supposed to start at 10:50, but now we are at 11:30, so we will try to finish by 12. And I have to make a disclaimer before I start. I will be playing the devil's advocate, so don't get frightened by some of my questions, okay? They are just meant to provoke thought. So we've been talking about millennials and Generation Y and after that Generation Z, you know, in the newspapers, in books, and so on and so forth. But we never talk much about Generation R. Maybe the reason why we never talk about Generation R is because you do not know what Generation R is, right? So Generation R is about the generation of robots that are joining the workforce, that are joining our offices, that are also joining our boards, okay? So Deep Knowledge, a venture capital firm in Hong Kong, recently appointed, okay, Vital, an algorithm to its board. I'm not sure whether you have heard about that. And of course, Nokia Corp last week, you know, announced that they will be automating their forecasting and reporting tasks for the express purpose of reducing headcount in the finance department. So I have a CFO from Nokia here. And I would like to ask him, quite frankly, do you think that scenario one is possible? Do you think that CFOs will be replaced by robots?
I'm trying to find this. Can you hear me? Maybe this one is better. Thank you for this nice introduction. So let me give you my view about this one. A couple of years ago in a CFO forum, talking about this kind of topic, I scared everybody by describing what you are calling scenario number one, and I left everybody fully depressed and about to resign or to commit suicide after the forum. And even today, I received messages on LinkedIn about it. Personally, yes, maybe scenario one is an option. I don't believe this will be the case for most of the companies, at least in a short-term run. But we can discuss about it. Just to comment a bit about what Nokia is doing, which will be more heading to the scenario 3, I would say. Just a couple of comments about it, because I think it's good introduction for the rest of the discussion. The first thing you need to understand is that this finance transformation actually is part of a much broader transformation or digitalization plan that started a couple of years ago, and covering all the functions and all the organizations of the company to be more agile vis-à-vis the customers and to be more competitive. So we started, without giving you all the details, by operation functions first, what is facing the customers. We deployed a huge program around supply chain, manufacturing, delivery services, and now comes the times of finance and other support functions. So the first thing which is important to understand is that the transformation in the finance space, and in particular with RPA, is not seen as isolation, but is part of a broader program, which is back to what Boris was describing right before. One of the reasons why Christian Poulala, our CFO, communicated is exactly about this point. This is more about the value creation we can bring as a finance, but not only as a finance, as a company to our customers. And finance is one illustration of this, meaning by automating, becoming more digital in the forecasting. It's not about figures. It's becoming more agile and more creative in the value we can bring to the customer, and in giving to the customer not only the perception, but the possible support they need to grow their business. Now, to come back more specifically on RPA and to close this point, yes, we started the RPA journey already a couple of years ago. It's an ongoing program. It will affect most of the functions, accounting, FP&A.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the impact on the finance headcount?
Yeah, no. I'm just coming to that. The important point first, and I'm not saying this to be politically correct, is about efficiency. Okay. The main objective is about efficiency, being more efficient in what we deliver every day, doing the controls first, doing, I don't know, the accounting basics, doing the analytics, doing all of this. We need, for different reasons that I will not comment, to be more efficient in the way we operate in the finance team. And then, yes, there is a second side, a consequence of it, which will be to transform the organization, and there will be definitely impact on the headcount and on the cost. This is part of the objective as well. Let's be honest, we have our own objectives in terms of cost and productivity in the finance team, and there will be probably headcount reductions in the different functions. We can say where, maybe in accounting, in particular to start with, in some operations, but there will be headcount impact with all the questions we all have about it, definitely.
Great. Thanks. And Jamie, you wanted to say something? Sorry.
I do, JJ. I'm very interested in particularly the automation piece, because there's certainly a lot of the stakeholders that we work with, particularly thinking about the UK market in particular. There is a lot of noise in the marketplace at the moment around RPA particularly.
Right.
And actually when I talk to a lot of finance directors and CFOs about what are you doing in terms of RPA in the finance organization as opposed to customer services or somewhere else in the enterprise, I actually struggle to find lots of examples of where it's really being scaled and applied properly. So it's really interesting to hear, JP, your experience from Nokia. And actually in practice what I hear is that there's quite a lot of runway with this stuff, and it's actually quite difficult in practice. So I think I wanted to start by saying that, you know, we are very knowledgeable and very sort of conscious of all this talk about digital and technology developments, but actually, you know, there are some inherent challenges here, and I think it's...
Jamie, I think you're a skeptic. You're basically, I will put you in the skeptic basket. But I know that ANZ has been using RPA. I know that Westpac, you know, has been using chatbots and so on and so forth. And we can talk about automation in general. So are we in a state of denial, or you know?
I'm not sure whether we are in a state of denial, but I think we just have to be quite cognizant of the fact that there is quite a... I think for many organizations, this is actually still quite embryonic. And I think also the other thing that I would say is that we get very, very... we risk getting very myopic around the automation and the technology piece, and we often forget that actually the technology is the driver, but the implication is around process, the implication is around people, the implication is around capabilities, and that's really what's going to unlock this piece around value for finance in the future.
So what you're suggesting is that there are prerequisites to automation. I mean, process, getting your process correct, and your talent and so on and so forth.
Absolutely,
right?
And let's be honest, automation isn't necessarily a new thing, as you just alluded to, JP. We've had automation in ERP for some time.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of efficiencies through standardization, through simplification of processes. So the automation piece is just one part of the jigsaw. So I'm just trying to sort of manage expectations a little bit around it from my point of view.
So you think scenario one is impossible? Scenario one where CFOs get replaced?
I'm much more inclined to think scenario 3 where is much more likely, where the CFO actually has quite a bright future. I'm not saying that automation hasn't got a role to play. I think it will have, but I just think we need to walk before we run.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So I work in Johnson & Johnson, and exactly to your point, we put, thanks to EDB's partnership, we put 100 people here in Singapore, which was a big investment to look at FP&A. And what Lion mentioned actually resonates with me. People need to, first trust the data that you have. So a lot of the last 2 years have been just putting the infrastructure, systems, and data right. And as we look at RPA and AI right now, what we feel is that definitely is what we are going to do. But our people will then move from data reconciliations to framing the story, doing more predictive analytics, doing more influencing on the business. So I feel that, yes, jobs will be replaced, but it depends on the skill sets that we acquire to whether we'll be able to effectively have new jobs. As you look at the third revolution, the industrial revolution, the people at the bottom and the top of the chain were not touched. So people who were driving trucks were still driving trucks, or people who were doing highly analytical work where remain untouched. The
So,
fourth-
so who do you think will be safe in the fourth
So fourth,
revolution?
I think I have a question with when the driverless cars come, whether the truck drivers would get new jobs. I'm not too sure, but I'm sure at the top end, if people are wanting to change their skill set and get aligned with a new way of digital living, will still find relevance in finding new things that they can do.
Okay, so there's a question here from the audience which I would like to share. It says, please share how you get finance and other functions to embrace a digital future. I think, Leon, you want to take it? Yeah?
Sure. Is it on?
How to get finance, and to basically to embrace a digital future, and how do you equip the organization?
I think
Is it okay?
maybe we have more point of views on this since you're already in the midst of doing that. I'll give my point of views. I will contribute some of the points of views from the earlier panelists that, scenario one is not 100% extreme and remote, because if you're talking at the tasks we're talking about today, a lot of tasks can be automated. And first of all, don't look at automation as automating the current process. Remember, it's about innovating a process that you don't do the same thing and try to automate and make it quicker. That would be not the way I'm looking at things. And so with that, there's a high chance that things that can do differently, for example, I'll just give an example in KPMG first of all, then obviously Microsoft can talk about the finance function. In claim process today, we're still submitting our papers. I believe most organizations will submit some form of papers or even through the IT systems. But you think about it, a lot of this data entry today are still done by finance. You submit paper, someone check it, and then put it into the system. But what about using simple things like mobile application, mobile apps? Let the staff be the one keying in the data at the front. And if for the matter, for those who are taking taxis, can we not using this mobile app to say, click a button, it's like a pay now, right? So they don't have to pay, hence they don't have to claim. Disrupt the whole claim process and saying don't have to even pay in the first place. Then you don't have to deal with the claim activities. So that actually is what's happening now in KPMG, and we're trying to see how more we can do this for other things. Simple things like this, right? There's not automation, there's disruption, there's innovation. So my point of view on this finance function is we can start with some simple things like this, and they are not big investments. These are changing the mindset that we have to pay and claim, for example, earlier example I talked about. How about don't even do it in the first place? Disrupt the whole process and think about the way of engaging your people is different. And then we're talking about reporting and other things. These are prime candidates for us to look at automation, because every month there'll be some reporting that's going to carry out from this finance function. But you think about it, a lot of this reporting are actually based on fixed templates. And I will even go further to say, do we need such reporting on a periodic basis where you can make available on the real time? Right. So all these are the kind of ideas and this innovation thinking we should have start to embrace in finance function. Other part of the organization is starting to do some of these things. What about finance function? So maybe I will leave that with.
Thanks. Yeah.
Fabiana,
Fabiana, any words of
Microsoft.
advice for the finance department? You could.
So first, Vinika, thank you very much for inviting me to be on the panel. First and foremost, maybe I'm just very privileged for working for a technology company, so I'm very optimistic about what technology can do, not only for the finance organization, but for society in general. When we discuss about the financial future, I look at how I do my job today, and it feels like I'm already living the future. So in terms of leveraging machine learning for forecasting or for risk management, so it's already in place. Do I believe that this technology will replace what I do or what my team does? The answer is no. But it will definitely be a good different viewpoint that we need to take into account when we make our balanced decisions. But I also think it's an incredible forcing function that will actually change the way we operate. So if you think about let's say a chatbot or a robot to replace a CFO in the next 10, 15, 20 years, I don't think it's plausible nor probable. The reason is if you do a bit of research, you would probably realize that we don't even understand exactly how the human brain operates. Therefore, how can you actually possibly think about creating a brain and then actually imagine that this brain will have the general intelligence that we all do, which is actually bringing data and bringing the external context to actually link the dots and actually be able to advise your CEO, your CMO, your COO to make the best decisions for your business. So I'm, again, as I said, very optimistic, but I still think that we all have jobs.
I have to stop you there because you said you are being very optimistic. Can you be realistic?
Oh, I am absolutely realistic. So let me give you a couple of examples to make it real. So I mentioned about forecasting accuracy. So first, I think Leon just made such an incredible point in terms of there is obviously a lot of hype around machine learning, artificial intelligence, but there is a real option that you need to get first. And the real option is your data. If you don't clean up the kitchen, you won't be able to prepare a good meal. And the same thing applies for business insights and the use of machine learning. And very quickly, I mean, for those that are not very familiar with machine learning, basically, it may sound a little too obvious, but it's a machine that can learn in a way that you have a series of algorithms in it, and then you just feed that with your data. And then as the outputs come out, actually you can actually fine-tune the algorithms, and then eventually that's going to become more and more precise because you just put more and more data in. And as a consequence of that, you create a bit of a virtuous circle. So that, in turn, will help you to make better decisions. So if I think about how we do forecasting in Microsoft, that's what we do. So we have data for the last few years. We have the viewpoint from our sellers. We saw, obviously, the results that we got out of it. Our sellers tend to under-promise and over-deliver. So as you put your algorithms, you actually adjust to that, and then eventually have a viewpoint. So next time I engage with my commercial team, I actually can say, well, that's great that you're saying that's 10, but based on history, maybe 12, so let's have a good conversation.
Yeah, so
that's one.
A few people have been talking about data. Leon spoke about it earlier. I think Clarence spoke about it. And Fabiano, you're talking about it now, data, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we used to say cash is king, right? But now Singapore is going cashless, right? So all we see are the zeros and the ones that are flowing through from one account to another, right? Now, so really, if data is king today, why can't the chief data officer or chief information officer be the second man in the organization, advising the board or the CEO? What then is the role of the CFO? I mean, if you can get, if data is really king.
Do you want me to start, or shall
I mean, if you want to, yeah.
Oh, can drop the mic.
It's a difficult question, so if you want to take it.
Data itself is nothing really. And
okay, you just said data is nothing.
Yes, because I mean, if you think, so the thing is, what do you do with data?
Right.
What are the insights that you get out of data? I mean, I can go online and get a lot of data. What do I do with that? How I derive insights out of it, and how I take action based on that? That's a completely different story. Now, again, data is your real option. It's your precondition for success. It's not necessarily what's going to make you successful. The same thing that we were talking about cybersecurity, I mean, it's another topic, but it's a precondition for success. Now, once you've got that, and then the next problem you're going to have is now you have too much data. What do you do with that? How do you prioritize? Right, so then that's the second issue. Then the third issue is how do you translate data insights onto action? So that's the third aspect, and I hope as a CFO I can spend a lot more time doing that than actually, trying to understand the insight and things like that.
Jamie? Yeah.
Yeah, if I can, JJ, I think your question was around, okay, so if data is sort of, is the key asset in the business now, then why can't it be a chief data officer rather than a CFO? And I think one of the ways that I think about why it really should be the CFO and why it will be the CFO is because finance, historically, for very, very good reasons, when we think about controllership, when we think about stewardship of the organization, does act as that independent challenge as well to the organization, which I don't necessarily think you would get from other functions. So I think when we think about the value that data can bring and the insights that can be unlocked from that piece around independence for the finance organization is really, really important.
So we've got a bunch of, we've got a panel, sorry. We've got a panel who are really, really optimistic. Everyone is for scenario one, right? Am I right? Or scenario
I
3.
want to clarify
Scenario
that,
3. Scenario 3 is where the CFO. Sorry?
Chatbot, robot. I think to be realistic to your point, I don't think scenario 1 will be something that's going to be so near future. But it may happen. I say it's not 100% remote, it may happen. Our point of view, at least from my point of view as well, that it's going to be scenario 3. Right? That's where the CFO has a better chance to survive if you employ some of the things we talk about today. And if I just go back, I feel like I need to say something about data, since we talk about data. Sure. Right? I take a step back and look at data. There are a few attributes that we need to think about data. Number one is size does matter in data. That's why it calls big data. It's not small data. The bigger the data set, the more value you can mine from the data set. And very simple because there are interconnectivity you can draw inference from to make decisions for the business. That's number one. Number two, Fabiano talk about data is nothing. I think he meant this thing about context, purpose. If you don't have a context and purpose, data is nothing to you. You can go and plow data from everywhere and put it into a lake, so to speak, a data lake, but you're not going to do anything about it. There's no value. You can mine for what purpose? So that's important. Whether it's a growth purpose, cost purpose, risk purpose, let's be very purposeful. That's the second one. And the third one is really, since we talk about big data as a size, purpose is actually the context. The third part is actually not to always do it within your own this function. The data can only be as valuable as how much you collaborate with the other part of the function. Right? So you can bring more new possibilities and new dimensions to the data if you collaborate with the function. So earlier when Satya talked about the 5 dimensions, one of them is actually collaboration. And in collaboration is really need to start opening up, building trust, opening up, and then that's where some of these things are coming together, as you can see. So I just want to keep that in mind as we do talk about data. Every one of us has equal chance to be a chief data officer, I mentioned earlier. Right? So CFO is in the sweet spot to do that, amongst other things, amongst other roles in the organization. Of course, CEO can do that, but too busy guy, right? He could manage so many things in one go. But CFO has a sweet spot to make that happen, make the change.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. So I've asked your opinion. Earlier on, we had a poll question, and I asked the audience their opinion about which of the scenarios they think will materialize. Okay, so maybe we can flash the poll results on the screen, and of course, nothing surprising that 85% have voted, or basically said that that the CFO's role will be crystallized and empowered with the use of technology. Okay, 4% said that the CFO's role will be vaporized. Okay, and 4% said Uberized. Okay, so there are about 49 people who voted on this, and of course 6% said none of the above. Very, very small percentage. So I think I should ignore it. So I think the 3 main scenarios has been well charted in the particular report, because only 6% said none of the above. So those are the 3 main scenarios. We are already running out of time, but I just would like to share with the panel one of my interviews that I had with one of the CFOs who have been included in the report, and that was John Low from Tencent, the CFO from Tencent. And I asked him, does he have a CTO? And he said, CTO, our organization doesn't have a CTO. Everybody knows about technology. Okay. So the other side of the coin is, of course, will the CTO be replaced? Will the CIO be replaced? So of course, Leon is a CIO of KPMG, and
Chief Innovation.
Okay. And we also know, there are actually very different points of views, and the way you come about it, whether technology people will be displaced or whether finance people will be displaced. There are basically varying views on that. So the thing is, okay, so as Leon pointed out, there is a possibility that scenario 1 may materialize. So the question is, what do we do about it, right? So I think there's, how do we address this issue? And there is another poll question. I think if you look at Slido now, you actually have another poll question. Can the results be flashed? Okay, so The question was, in which area do you think CFOs today have the greatest competency in? So the greatest competency, 50%, actually only 50%, but there's only half of you said that strategic leadership is the greatest competency. Cross-functional collaboration is 31%, about 1/3. Use of data to create value, 13%. And then it goes, my voice is becoming softer and softer because the percentages are going lower and lower. And of course, use of digital labor is only 6%. So the awareness of the use of digital labor is pretty low. Leadership is high.
Yeah.
Isn't that strange? I mean that, so anybody would like to comment on the results?
I think if you look at a finance leader, when we sit on any board, we would like to a business leader with strong finance background. That's what we bring. We don't bring only finance domain experience. So I completely align that is the leadership, it's the area of problem solving, innovation, where do we chart I think Satya, you mentioned it, where do we take the company next, are the things that you require from the CFO. It's just not trying to see whether a particular invoice is paid or not. So I completely align with this.
JB? Digital labor is very low, as what you said just now. Is it because of that digital labor has not been implemented in most organizations, or is it because CFOs are not aware of it?
I think there probably is an awareness thing going on here, JJ, to be honest, because I think, again, certainly the conversations I've had and thinking about my own time in finance, which was some time ago now, but actually how much have things changed? A lot of CFOs and finance directors that we work with, there is still, I think, a lack of understanding around even sort of, the different aspects of automation and what RPA is versus other automation tools. There is a lack of awareness sometimes in the market, so perhaps that's a reflection of some of the results that we're seeing here. The other thing I'd comment on is the piece around strategic leadership, and I do think that one of the things that is coming very clearly through a lot of the work that we're doing, a lot of conversations we're having is around this piece around finance culture, and finance mindset, and finance leadership, because you can have all the technology in the world, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be a truly great finance organization, you need CFOs and finance leaders who have the right mentality and can instill the right culture in the finance organization to adapt. And the reality is, some CFOs are going to get over the line with that, and some CFOs will probably struggle, because some CFOs know what they like and they like what they know. So this adaptation piece...
So there's a digital natives and digital victims.
Yeah, and I think everyone has to be, all finance leaders have to be really cognizant of the fact that, what's happening now is going to take a little bit of a mindset shift in finance. And I think that is actually a challenge for some finance leaders.
Yeah, thanks. GP.
No, I just wanted to add and to comment about the digital labor, because I think this is a big question mark. We are struggling, and I fully agree about this question of awareness. I think we are very simply struggling to envisage, to think what can be the next finance roles, what can the next finance teams look like in, say, 10 or 15 years from now. So we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of thoughts about digital native, migrant, millennials and all of this, but when it comes to concrete things, right, what is going to remain in the accounting team or not, and what kind of profile, what kind of skills we need, we are not there yet. So just to share a bit what we are doing at Nokia, and back also to your point, Jay, we are still at early stages on this. We have started a program or different programs, which by coincidence we call it Think Ahead, right?
Think Ahead.
Yes, you
that's,
say. So
incidentally, that's,
I hope you don't have the copyright on this.
Yeah.
The idea is the ambition is to say, look, let's try to identify what can be what do we need in a finance team in 5 years from now. Okay, not 22nd century, right? Let's look at 5 years, right? What do we need in the different teams? What kind of profiles? And then what competencies do we need to build? So behind it, there is a lot of training, but not only training on the hard skills, on the soft skills, because we understand that we are not good there. But going beyond that is a challenge. And to stop on this awareness, we had a very interesting workshop with Christian Pulala, our CFO, in 2 months ago, with some of the finance leaders to brainstorm on this question. And out of, I don't know, we were maybe 20, 30 people. It's very interesting. No one has the same understanding. No one has the same opinion. Mm-hmm. Right? So, long way to go to fix it, but a real challenge, I agree. And a lot of expectation for you guys then.
Thank you.
Actually, Joseph, I may have a
Yeah.
controversial statement to make based on the poll.
Right.
And from my perspective, this is more a desired future state about what a CFO will be, as opposed to what most of us do today. So yes, we want to be a strategic advisor, but in my interactions with many of our CFO customers, what I see is that most of them continue to struggle with data, cash flow, compliance, and I'm not suggesting that they are not important activities, but I'm just saying that these are activities that you need to do just to keep the lights on. That will not change the way the company operates. It will only keep you alive. Now, it's a ticket to play the game. It's not necessarily what makes you relevant in the future. So I would love that to be the truth for all of us, but based on my personal experience, I still don't see that happening, at least not on the vast majority of the folks doing this job.
Thank you. So we are running out of time, so just a final round of questions. Just not final round of questions, sorry. The last question, rather, the concluding question to just cap this panel discussion. Okay, just each of you tell me what will be the unique value proposition of the CFO in 2025 when your colleagues, half of your colleagues will be robots. JP, starting with you. What is a unique value proposition of a CFO in 2025?
I think for me, we will continue, but differently, to be the key support in the decision-making process, and in what we can bring to the strategy view and the execution of strategy. That for me will be the key value, with new tools, new processes, new way to do it. But that's for me the key proposition.
Strategic insight with augmented intelligence.
Insight and advised, and I fully agree about the question of the bringing an independent view, because what I start to see today is it's not only about data, we have a complexification of the interaction between the different functions of the company, and also between the company and the customers. Right? It's very interesting today. If I look at what we are doing or what I'm doing with the customers, I'm not more interacting with the CFO as such. I'm interacting with the head of procurements. I'm interacting with different teams and with different problematics. And here, I think as a CFO, we have a key role to play to be the bridge between all this organization and this requirement. And that's what will keep us busy and alive. I'm convinced of this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I agree, JJ. I mean, I think the CFOs of the future, that there is a brilliant opportunity in terms of the strategic leadership piece, and within that, I'd probably say being a key architect of driving broader enterprise transformation and not just finance transformation. But I think, back to Fabio's point before, what we cannot forget about as well is having brilliant controllership and stewardship of the organisation. And I think sometimes we do sort of stray into this sort of sexier world, if you like, around sort of strategic insight and sort of leading the organisation in terms of, its future strategic direction.
Coming back to the basics.
I don't think we can ever forget where we come from. And I think it's a very difficult balancing act to play. But if we lose focus around that,
right,
then we lose it at our peril, I think.
Okay.
So I think it's a bit
that's
of
quite alarmist. But
I think we in Johnson & Johnson actually did a workshop on this. 125 of us came together on what will happen to the finance function. And in short, we said that adding value to the business, and I completely agree, it's more organizational, through agility, innovation, and leadership. Agility in the sense that things need to be done quicker as a finance function. Leadership is ensuring that the leaders that come out have the skill sets to become CFOs of the future, because they won't have the ability that we had in our lifetime to work on various facets of finance. The new leaders won't have that. So how do we provide that leadership and competency in the new people who join the company? And innovation in everything we do, whether it's going digital, whether it's acquiring new companies, whether it's business model, distributor change, entering new markets, pricing, etc.
Thank you.
From my perspective, I think it all boils down to whether how you can actually remain relevant and add value to the business. And what I expect to see in the upcoming years is perhaps more people from finance moving to the business, actually experiencing real life experience in terms of what it's like to deal with customers, what it's like to compete, and then coming back. That would actually give you a phenomenal opportunity to actually link the dots again. So then you have your technical expertise, your data-oriented mind, but you also understand, in a broader context, what your company is in, how you add value, and then therefore you can actually be a better trusted advisor to your business. So that's what I expect to see more and more. We can no longer actually run the business out of Excel spreadsheet or a ERP system. So that's what I expect to see change in the next 10 years.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to just focus on one main thing called data. Since JJ talked about cash is king in the past, now it's data, right? Human being motivated by money, cash, but machine, robot don't. They are motivated by data. So you need to be able to feed the machine and the robot more data rather than cash. The cash is irrelevant to them. So it's the first thing first is, as CFOs, you need to acquire the new skill set called data strategies. Being a data strategist in an organization is going to be the next new skill set every single finance or CFO need to acquire. So with that, it means that you then putting together the earlier conversation around the architect for change. It's really about then being a change agent, starting to build trust in the organization, to use data more, to create a new possibilities, and to enable performance. Not just to measure today, the basic will still be there, but enable performance using a more data-driven approach, rather than just having some gut feel all the time. I mean, CEO has a lot of gut feel. I'm not discounting that, but can we be more scientific, sometimes even more engaging, using data to drive some of these decision points? So I think back to the earlier point, we talked about the data. Everything we talk about in digital start with data. So I think that's the first starting point in my view, that CFOs start to acquire, and then you can make better use of this data to create more value.
So you've heard 5 different perspectives on why scenario 3 would be the most probable scenario. So that's a very optimistic picture. So it's good that this panel discussion has basically kept the day's presentations earlier. And if you can remember, Patrick Tay, our guest of honor, spoke about being able, right, being agile, right, and one more, what is it? Adaptable, right, okay, adaptable. And of course, Satya spoke about the report, and he also said that the only thing that the machines can't do is to be accountable for the actions. So the humans have to be there. But thankfully, he also said, don't become digital victims. So you can be accountable, but don't become victims. Okay. And then we've got Clarence, who talked about transform and create from the EDB perspective. But he also mentioned that that the growth rate of artificial intelligence is more than 60%. Okay, more than 60%. That means by the time we've got 8 years between now and 2025, and if AI grows by 60% compounded, just imagine what the future will be. Right? And then, of course, Boris said that the finance department shouldn't be marginalized. They should be, in front of the organization, sharing, and so on and so forth. And of course, Leon gave a fantastic presentation, and emphasizing the importance of data again. So I would like to, of course, thank the audience for participating. And also, I would like to thank the panel also for their insights, sharing their insights. Maybe you can join me in just thanking the panel now. Thank you. Thank you very much.